Okay, welcome back to the good, the bad, and the ugly money. This time we're going to be speaking about Brexit. This is part two with Caroline Steeving, Stepping Stones Live, which will be repeated on the Stepping Stones to Awareness YouTube site. One moment, please.
Welcome to a Stepping Stones to Awareness show. I'm Caroline Stevens, and today I'm interviewing Mark Ceylon from Nottingham. Now, Mark and I are going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's sort of money related, but this time it's about Brexit. Now, Mark, you're joining me from Nottingham. We talked earlier on off air about Brexit. What's your opinion? Because I know you weren't actually actively involved. You weren't involved on the street stalls. You were dealing with anti-corruption instead.
Yeah.
So how does Brexit fit with anti-corruption?
Well, again, it sort of comes down to the straw man, because when you realise that, and this is the reason I didn't have anything to do with Brexit, because I'm not on the voters register. So
when you take yourself out of the system, you can't vote.
Correct. But then again, when you realise voting doesn't make any difference anyway, what's the problem?
Well, true. It's same old, same old. It's the same old corrupt system. The parties are all, basically they're controlled by the higher beings. And so, they just have little bun fights, little children in the playground, squabbles in Parliament. But the more I've spent looking at Brexit and what's actually, whether we're going to get Brexit or not, I've seen our MPs take advice from plants, if you like, people planted into organisations to give a skewed opinion on the fact that really we should be staying in. Fishing is a prime example. And now I'm seeing these leave groups like Leave Means Leave and Fishing for Leave, all these, and Veterans for Britain, all these organisations, some of which were around for the last referendum. And we talked about revolution earlier, and revolutions go back to the beginning. And it's just like, it's like Groundhog Day almost. It's like I've woken up and we're facing the same situation that we faced a couple of years ago when I was actually actively on the streets campaigning, supporting the activists. And I just look back and think, there's a total, when they talk about conspiracy theories, this is one big conspiracy. We were falsely led that we would get Brexit. And, I just disagree with people who say we're going to get Brexit come what may. I don't see it at all. What do you think?
They are just leading us down a path, and they will tell us we're out of Europe. But yeah, don't worry, we'll definitely be out of Europe, except we'll still be run by their judiciary, have to obey all the rules that Europe puts out. No. And if you've seen any of my videos where I review the papers in the morning, quite often Brexit comes into it. And I always say, we don't need none of this waiting 3 years to say we've spoken, we said we want out. Repeal the 72 Act, we're out. That's it. Gone. It's gone for good. But of course, that is the simple plan where you don't have to have all this messing around. And I believe that they are working the way to a second referendum. And in that one, that will be fixed, that we remain. And you might think, how could I be so sure of that? And I'm so sure of that because way before Brexit, there was the Scottish referendum on leaving the UK. And if you go on YouTube and just do a tiny bit of research, you'll find them where they were fixing the votes in the count office. There's all this, yes, leave, and they went in the remain vote. Do you not think they do the same in the vote we just had? And if we do have another one, this time they'll make sure it goes exactly the way they want it. They couldn't do it last time because I honestly believe it was more like 80% voted to leave than the 51-49 that they put across. And so what they've done is just like they did with Ireland in the Lisbon Treaty, because this is how democracy works, right? You ask the Irish people if they want to be in the Lisbon Treaty and they vote no. Well, that's it then, isn't it? Oh, wait, no, not when you're in the EU, it's not. Because what happens then is you then get 6 months of propaganda pumped from every orifice they can pump it at you. And then they had another referendum. And again, the Irish said, no, we don't want the Lisbon Treaty. So then they had another 6 months of propaganda. It's good for you. Even though it's signing away all your rights, it's good for you. It's good for you. And to the end, I think the Irish people just said, in fact, I don't think they said, let's just vote yes. I think the votes were just rigged in the end because they couldn't rig it, the first 2 votes. They thought by the propaganda they put out beforehand would have sorted it. And when it didn't, they panicked, gave it a 6 month and voted again. So,
well, Mark, actually, talking about the vote system, that's an interesting point. Because when I worked for Vote Leave, I used to go down to the council offices every morning to see the postal votes being opened up. And perhaps it might come as a shock to people at home, or some people, that when they open the envelopes, how people have voted is face down. You don't actually see how those people, you just see people opening envelopes. I mean, it's crazy. And then you've got a situation where, because I was a Vote Leave activist, we were given, towards the end, before the referendum, we were given lists of people who had said on the telephone that they intended to vote Leave. And I tell you, street after street in my area, which I never really considered a Leave area, everybody had voted to leave. So how come we had such a narrow 52-48? Something smells.
Well, it's an ideal vote if, as we were just speaking about Ireland, if you want to do the same process here, because they've been bombarding us with, if you leave the EU, it's going to mean that cancer goes up. If you leave the EU, it's going to cost you more money to do this and do that and do. Well, we better not leave then, had we? Oh, but wait, that's exactly what they want us to do in the first place. So they bombarded us with fake news about how all those that many of those that voted to leave actually now want to remain. Well, I can tell you, I'm a staunch leaver, and if I had been a voter, I would have voted to leave. But as I said earlier and realised, voting doesn't make a blind bit of difference, apart from the fact that if you're on that voters register, you have given the government your consent for them to do whatever they like. And that's why, if, like me, you're not on the voters register, every now and again, you'll get someone come round knocking on the door. I had it a few years ago. They tend to leave us alone now because I've got signs up to say, don't bother me. And they'd come to the house and say, well, you're not on the voters register. I said, yeah, because I don't vote. Well, it doesn't matter if you vote or not, but you need to be on the voters register or you'll get a fat £1,000 fine. And I go, do you work for the council? She says, yeah. So you know who lives here then? Well, I don't at the moment, no. But you could find out. Yeah. So why do you want my details? Why do you want me to personally sign this document and give my rights away? When you just said it doesn't matter if you vote or not, because they don't care whether you vote or not. And this is why they're panicking, because so many are leaving the voters register and there are ways around it. The ways you can get removed. They know if they don't have enough on the voters register, the whole government is illegitimate, which it is anyway. But all we've got, and it doesn't matter. This is the thing that really pisses me more than anything, is those that think, well, Corbyn will come in and he'll make a difference. No. It's a different side of the coin.
But Mark, what's more incredible is the fact that people think that Mog will make a difference to Theresa May. As if it's just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, for me, one of the big key factors in all politics is paedophilia.
Yeah.
And the fact that Corbyn covered up paedophile stuff in the 80s in Kensington tells me which side he's on. He's not on our side. He's on the side of paedophiles. So if you really want him to be a prime minister and think he's going to be any different to this one, I'm afraid you're living in cloud cuckoo land.
Right. So what do we say to the Brexiteers who'll be watching tonight? The fact that people like Jacob Rees-Mogg want trade deals, which basically appear to be giving all our sovereignty away. How is that Brexit?
Well, it clearly isn't. It's tying us further into the EU system.
Exactly.
Particularly with the Army, the Navy, the Air Force at the moment. As far as I understand it, we've got no control of them anymore. It's run by the EU now, even though it's supposed to be under our treasonous government's.
All that we need is the same uniform, and well, the job's a good one then, isn't it?
Yeah. And they're trying to tie us in to the point where we're so tied in, it's almost impossible to get out. But at the end of the day, repeal the 72 Act. That's it. Yeah. But Europe say we owe them £50 billion. Yeah, well, we have nothing to do with Europe now because we bricked up that act. That it wasn't a law. It was just a piece of paper that a treasonous prime minister knowingly signed us up to, knowing it. Because remember how it was sold? Oh, it's just a common market, so we can get together and do deals with each other. Well, how true was that? Because the deals they were doing behind everyone's back was far worse than just common market stuff, as it's turned into, or they're trying to turn it into, an EU superstate, the likes of America. But it just won't work here. We've had the World War II, which was controlled and manipulated by the banks in the first place. We aren't going to fall for it again.
No.
And there's that many now speaking out. It's like now, it used to be a point where if I'd go into a pub, I generally wouldn't say too much about what I normally talk about for fear that someone's going to start saying, oh, he's crazy, he believes this, he believes that. But now you go in a pub and if you listen to other conversations, they're talking about the same stuff that I talk about and I'm sure you talk about.
Well, people, at the beginning of the year, I would talk about the treasonous government. And some very nice ladies would say, Caroline, we love your stuff that you're putting out, but please don't use that word. It's very emotive. I said, but that's what they're doing. We need to take them to court. Oh, no. But now we have everybody in the media talking about treason. So it's just, when you're trying to blaze the trail, if you like, you're always going to get shot at. You sit in the crow's nest. You can say, there's an iceberg coming. And at first people ridicule you. And now people are saying, oh, yes, you were right all along. We're not getting Brexit. To watch the Leave groups doing these big road shows with so-called names going round and charging, going through Ticket Source and Eventbrite, selling tickets. It really has now, in my opinion, turned into a circus.
It's so pathetic, and to help cover it up, they use what are called false flag operations, where they pretend something's happened that didn't really happen the way you were told it was happened, but it distracts you from looking at what they're doing. And it's so easy for everyone to get dragged into this until you actually examine the evidence. And the more you look at any of these events that they've staged, it becomes blatantly obvious it is nothing like what we've been told. And that goes back to 7/7 in the UK, 9/11 over in America, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which virtually they tried to drag America into the Vietnam War. All proven false flags events, which is where one nation creates, for instance, an attack on a ship and then blames it on the one that you want to go after. Well, they're using exactly the same that here, except they're using it with terrorists. But wait a minute, these terrorists, they forgive me for speaking my mind here, but they do seem to be, or so far, have always been of a darker persuasion. But then when you look into their background, it turns out some of these are loving men that have been duped into, for instance, 7/7. I believe they thought they were on an exercise for MI5, MI6, and they were going to do this route. That's why there was no rush about them. That's why they missed the train that they needed to get to their other connections they were supposed to get. But they not just missed it, it didn't run on the day. And the government had to backtrack and then try and say, oh, they got a later one. Well, OK, then we'll go with that then. If they got a later one, they missed all the connections. How did they still get to where they were going?
Well, the government, we've only had recently the Russian poisonings, the allegations of it. And we know without a shadow of a doubt, the government is desperate now.
Yes.
because it is such fake news. But what worries me is that the Brexiteers, before the referendum, would talk about the Brussels Broadcasting Corporation. They'd say about fake news and the mainstream media. But yet, every day we get dribbles coming from Whitehall. News coming out about whether we get Brexit and Boris Johnson taking over or not. And the Brexiteers are believing it. And I'm thinking, but hang on, before the referendum, we were telling everybody, don't believe this. And people seem to be falling for the media line now. I mean, but Boris Johnson, people, Brexiteers are being photographed with Boris Johnson. And I said, but hang on, this is the man who only made his mind up which side of the fence, which side of the table he was going to support, if you like. Reminds me of a World War One, the Treaty of Versailles. Which side he decided was, March the 8th, I believe, in 2016, for a referendum vote, 3 months later. But yet, 2 weeks before the referendum date, he was fronting a video recommending that Turkey join the EU. But that... wake up, can you not see the full picture? Why would he do that if he was a staunch Leaver? Why is it that these Leave MPs tell us privately nothing is happening in Whitehall, they're not making any plans for Brexit? Why doesn't somebody actually have the guts to stand up and say this?
Because if you're an MP, the chances are you've been doing something you shouldn't have been doing. And the security services have got video of you doing that something you shouldn't have been doing. And if you don't do what they say, that video just might sneak out,
Well, yes, so, you might put somebody's hand, you might put your hand on somebody's knee. That sort of happened, that allegation came out just as we had launched. I'd been involved in launching the Pesco Gate campaign in the absence of any Leave group actually taking the bull by the horns, or even any political party highlighting this. So there were 3 of us that launched the Pesco Gate campaign to say, hang on, MPs, are you aware that behind closed doors we are signing away our military? Mm-hmm. And the MPs just basically, we collated all their responses. And over a period of a couple of weeks, Central HQ obviously realised that we were trying to cover the whole of the UK. And then we ended up with a sort of template letter coming back.
Yeah.
So it's all controlled.
Oh, absolutely. If there's anyone out there that actually thinks there is going to be a Brexit, wake up.
Yeah.
You're just not paying attention to what's going on. It's in you. This is the annoying thing. It's in your face what they have got plans for. And I tell you what, here's something for you, everyone here. There's a video, although I think YouTube has tried to block it now, but it is available on maybe Vimeo or Dailymotion or BitChute, called Europa, the Final Battle. It's 10 parts. But if you just watch the first one, or I would say watch it all, but if you just watch the first one, you will see everything pretty much that they are doing to us right now, they've done in the past. They're just replaying the same model because it worked in the past and they're working it again. And it will, I've had, because I put it out on my YouTube channels, I've had some come back saying, I've watched that and wow, I can't believe what I saw. Because it tells more of the real history of our nation.
Well, basically, it didn't all end in World War II. That was just, we continued going for the closer integration. I mean, our military has been depleted over years. Our civil services, infiltrated. The MPs are chosen on purpose, aren't they? I mean, everybody's on some sort of pecking order. Your background checks.
You can't, if you become an MP, they'll have already had something on you. There is no democracy. As I mentioned earlier about Ireland, democracy where, we voted, we don't want Lisbon Treaty. Well, we'll ask you again in 6 months. Oh, no, we still don't want it. We'll ask you again in 6 months. OK, we'll have it. That's not democracy. That's a dictatorship.
Well, I got an email today asking me if I wanted to go to a debate. Is Brexit good for London? And the 2 people for and 2 people against. I don't even know why we're supposed to be having this debate, but it was interesting that it was Andrew Adonis, Bilderberger, attendee. He's on the Remain side. Now, he has been going around the country since the referendum, trying to meet with friends of mine who are Brexiteers to talk to them about why they wanted to leave. So why is it, so he resigns from the Infrastructure Commission, which of course everybody thinks that the Infrastructure Commission is a government department, but a lot of these departments are really not government. They're private corporations. And the Infrastructure Commission is the one that's talking about HS2. I mean, that's effectively an EU project without the EU logo on it.
And it's already cost over £4 billion, and they haven't even laid a track yet.
Are they just still busy land clearing?
Yeah, 4 billion. That's more than it was supposed to be totaled anyway, and yet it's cost 4 billion without them doing anything. You can end up talking about 20 billion. It's mainly because those companies that get in to do it are the ones that charge the most expensive price, because who orders them to do that gets a nice little backhander. And so everyone's happy that's involved in the scam. It just costs us everything.
Yeah. So what was the chief executive getting paid? Something like £700,000-800,000 a year for doing it? It's
the thing that it should for everyone watching they should be going, what? Was one of the head management staff at Ceylon has now been appointed as one of the head management staff of HS2.
Well, that's funny. I was going to mention about Ceylon and what happened to that, and the government doesn't learn from its mistakes. And he's gone across to HS2 now, has he?
Yeah. They learn exactly from the mistakes. They know exactly what the plan is. And let's face it, he did his job well with Ceylon, so let's bring him ever in. We can get him to milk more money out of the system. And the dumbed down people will just think, it's just costing a little bit more, even though it's already over budget of what it should have been to finish it in the first place.
And just think of the accountancy firms that gives it clean bill of health. They're all into bed together.
Yes, yeah. It comes back to the banking system. It's all controlled. And you don't need to be a brain scientist to figure that out. For instance, you go onto the Bank of England website and you can find where they will openly tell you they manufacture money out of nothing.
Didn't I see something that Mark Carney is supposed to be retained for another year?
He was supposed to have gone. I've not seen that he's going to be retained. But then again, wait a minute. This is the Bank of England. Why have we got a Canadian in charge of the Bank of England? Because it's a private corporation and nothing to do with England.
And George Osborne appointed him, didn't he?
Yes.
A Bilderberger attendee again.
Yes.
There seems to be a commonality here.
And of course, the other thing they have in common, particularly with Osborne, is he likes his cocaine and he likes his prostitutes.
Well, actually, it's interesting. I wrote to one of the MPs the other day, one MP that actually still does respond. Well, he might not respond now, but he certainly did give me a response. And I just said, look, you're all messing around in Parliament. Just repeal the European Communities Act. You don't know what you're all doing. You're taking advice from Remain people, and the whole system is just not fit for purpose. And he said, oh, yes, we will get Brexit. And I wrote back, look, I said, why should we listen to you? I said, according to the 2016 Sex Offenders Register, there's 164 of you on there. And he said, well, you can't believe that. That's ridiculous. And I just think, well, and how is so-and-so with his rent boys these days? And, they've got cognitive dissonance as well. They sit in their ivory towers.
Well, unfortunately, they seem to think just because they've got lots of money and their MPs, which gets them lots of money anyway, that lots of money is going to be worth lots of money forever. It's not going to be worth anything very soon. The financial crash has already started. It started with Turkey. It started before that, but the main signs that anyone can find out for themselves is the Turkey crash. their financial systems crashes. Greece is already gone. Italy's is shot to bits. And once one of them really does go, the rest will just tumble like everything else. And then that's when they will try for the revolution, because they want to start again and have us all as slaves again for as long as we'll allow it. The time to stand up and say, no, I've had enough of this. I know what the game is. I'm not playing anymore.
Well, having seen what life's like in southern Italy in the last couple of weeks, and the numbers of people that are coming up from Africa who have no work, who are begging at petrol stations, offering, physically opening your petrol cap and then demanding money. I think British people should be very scared about our MPs, because these people are not stopping in Europe. They are coming across. There are huge problems in Paris. Paris has fallen. Crime is rife on the continent, and I believe crime is rife in many parts of Britain now.
Yeah, and all by design. And this is the way. One of the methods they use, though, they'll say, "Oh, we've got to let these EU migrants in because they've had it terrible in Africa." Well, hold on a minute there. If they're from Africa, they're not EU migrants, they're African migrants.
No.
So if they're African migrants, then if they really want asylum, the idea is you get out of the country where you're being persecuted from. The first country you get into, you say, can I have asylum? You don't travel across 7 different countries to get to the UK, unless, of course, you've been told there's some secret pot of gold there for you, like houses and benefits that are way more than the indigenous population get. If you've been told that, then you think, yeah, it might be worth just getting over to the UK, even though it's a small little island.
Well, people trafficking is rife now, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they go into Italy on the boats. They pay €5,000. They get their health checks. They are given benefits, as you say, much more than the indigenous population. Yep. They are taking over hotels, getting €35 a day. I've got a friend who's actually half Italian, and it is happening. She understands what is happening in the system. And yet the indigenous population are having to live on €1-2 an hour waitressing in southern Italy, and they are really struggling.
All by design, and it's always been aimed this way. What they are trying to do, and I've looked into this quite extensively, what they are planning on doing to the indigenous population of Europe is replacing them with an African population. That is the big plan. Yeah. And
this is that Agenda 2021, or is that Barcelona Agreement?
It's more in line with Barcelona Agreement, but it's those that will say, "Oh, you're being racist." No, I'm not. I'm being honest. I'm telling you what their plan is. And if you want to think I'm racist, you think that all you like. But if you just sit there and don't pay any attention, or at least don't do any research to prove me wrong, you're part of the problem.
Well, people need to get out more. They need to go to the continent, see what's actually happening, especially in the hotspots, and then take on board. But back home, I mean, what did we see last week? An MP, a Leave MP, out on a boat, campaigning again, and it just seems ever so sad. Then we've got the French fishermen throwing rocks at the British boats. And
Don't worry, because we've got our Navy. They'll protect us. Except we've only got that one £3 billion aircraft carrier that's got no support craft and no airplanes. But they'll protect us.
But the government has done a great job, hasn't it? Because I've spoken to so many armed personnel now, army, military, navy people, up in York the other week. It was an armed forces day, and there wasn't one person that knew anything about military unification. We're not talking about EU armies, we're talking about military unification. Because when we've highlighted it on Facebook, on social media, people say, oh yeah, but so-and-so did talk about an EU army. I said, no, it's a different thing altogether. EU military unification, all boots in together, all eventually wearing the same uniform, not some sort of add-on special projects force. And it takes a while, I think, for people to understand that we're talking about common treasuries. I mean, why is it that we're involving ourselves in all these common discussions if we're leaving?
Well, that would actually suggest that we're not actually leaving, and that would be correct.
So people are being led, Brexiteers in particular, we're going to be no deal or deal. But deals are being done, so there is no such thing as a no deal.
Yeah.
Right, Mark. Well, I know that you've got to be up early tomorrow, and you do a regular news feed, don't you? Is it on Twitter, or where should people find your regular news on Brexit and other matters?
Well, you can find it on Twitter, although they've started to make my posts disappear. You can sign up to my YouTube channels. You'll find them on. I have 3 because I lost one a few years ago, and I thought that's not going to happen again. So I've set up 3 channels now, and I put a video out on each channel every other day, and sometimes 2 a day, depending on if I've got together with me bold friend that you'll see me in a car with sometime, where we talk about what's going on. But we try and put a little bit of a lighter spin on it, because what we talk about is serious, but if you put a little bit of comedy in there, it's not as scary, and it sort of gets through to those that perhaps wouldn't have listened, and they might just sit at the back of the head ticking away until a point they go, wait, whoa, what the heck just happened there? And that's the way we approach it on that one.
Right, Mark. So just to finish off with, I don't know if you're aware, but I am part of a group called Democracy 17.4. People say, why is it called 17.4? Well, it's 17.4 million people voted to leave. We're trying to bring all the disparate groups together, because all these groups on Facebook and outside Facebook have particular areas of interest, whether it be corruption, free speech, trade, and the Commonwealth. So we're trying to bring everybody together under a common umbrella, because it's got to be the 99% of us that now must fight back against the elites.
We're actually being still used even there, though, because all these new little organisations are popping up with a similar sort of thing, but it's a separate type of organisation. So they're still using the divide and conquer thing. Some of it may be set up by genuine guys and girls. Others, I believe, will be set up deliberately just to cause, well, I'll get to that group, you get to that group, and then, of course, you're dividing again. We need to all come together and realise that we've tried democracy and it doesn't work.
And now we're facing the biggest crises humanity has ever faced with the rollout of 5G.
Yeah.
Where they want to kill us, they want to maim us, they want to affect our water supply, the chemical trails, and again, our own personal security. If you do not have security, if you do not have your food and water and shelter, then there is no hope. So we now must, in the wake of a failed Brexit, come together. We need to get 650 good men and women into Parliament and remove the existing crew. So watch this space, and I hope to interview you again soon, and perhaps we'll see each other on the anti-corruption trail around the country.
Sounds good to me.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, Caroline.
All right, and thanks to the viewers at home for watching today.
Well, if you'd like to support Stepping Stones to Awareness, do try and use PayPal and send to miles@thebasisproject.org. It's very straightforward. It does require a PayPal account. There are other ways of doing it. Do try to do that on the basisproject.org website. Thank you, everybody, for now.